Yo, 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 it's your boy Spencer Turkey back at it again. You know what it is, dog. All right. So we got some PUBG full-blown city map, something I've always wanted in this game. Wanted to get in here and talk about this a little bit, by the way. Just setting up my face cam again with this new mic, so bear with my ass, all right? Because I don't know what the hell I'm doing at all. Dude, look at this cheese. SKS domination, bruh. And I got the new mouse. Oh, baby. Oh, literally, I'm 3 times as good at pub instantaneously just with having an actual decent mouse, decent setup. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes all the difference in the world. So, either way. So, basically, this is like kind of one of those things, you know, they have the standard woodland map. They have the snow map, they have the wide open desert map, right? They have all these different things, and it's like, then they get the jungle, the kind of sort of jungle map, even though I don't really think it's all that much of a jungle map, but they get the small map, you know what I mean? So they have a lot of these different map designs and elements and shit like that. You know, they have a lot of that in pub right now, but I feel like one thing they're missing is a full-blown, from the bottom up, city map. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the closest thing we have to it is obviously the bigger cities in the desert map. Obviously, kind of like this city, more so the damn Los Lainas or whatever, you know, I'm talking about the big ass city on the desert map. That's probably the closest thing we have to it. When you hop down on it, you kind of feel like you're playing like, you know, COD 4 or something, right? So basically like that, but an entire map made out of it. You know what I mean? Like basically New York City in a PUBG map, you know what I mean? That would be so badass. Could you imagine the gameplay elements and the, you know, basically being like, you know, skyscraper style buildings and just buildings everywhere? I just think that would be a really cool, different dynamic of a map and something that we don't really have in the game right now, you know? It's like, it's one of those things that would, when you go play the city map, it would truly feel completely different than all the other maps. And I think that's something they're kind of missing a little bit with pub right now, is that whole like making the different maps truly feel super different from each other. Like they do feel different in the sense of like biomes and the way, you know, the desert's like super wide open, the Sandhawks really, you know, close trees, narrow, like shoot combat, you know, different, they got like different layouts of hills and stuff like that. But as far as like the what's on them and the way the little like towns and stuff are, they're really not that drastically different. I mean, they are somewhat different, but like in all reality, they're not that. It's not like you're going to go on one map and have just, you know, skyscrapers in a city everywhere and then go to another map and it's like no buildings at all. It's not really like that. And I think that would be cool if they did have more of that variation in it, where it really is kind of like, you know, some maps are like full-blown city, bunch of structures, and then other maps are more like more natural, you know, there's not as many structures, you just have loot kind of randomly on the ground. I think it'd be cool if they start really getting those differences with that on pub. But dude, could you imagine the window warfare, dog, that you would have in a map that's all buildings, right? Just be so cool for like grenade tossing, you know what I mean? Could you imagine tossing a grenade from a building that's like 10 stories versus 3 stories, you know what I mean? Like, that'd be so cool to do shit like that, and like people jumping out of buildings that are too high and trying to figure out like what would kill you from a certain height, you know, like fall damage and stuff like that. I got cheese right there, dog. Hardcore. That dude was just chilling up on top of a building, not moving at all. To me, it just seems like that would be so cool to have a map that's just all city. I don't know. There's just something about that, you know what I mean? And then they could have cool things where like you could go from one upper window to another, you know, story like across from you, you know, another tall skyscraper across from you, like some sort of zip line or some cool shit like that, and you can be shot while you're zip lining and stuff. There's going to be that whole aspect of like when you're fighting somebody, you got to be careful not fall off of a taller, like there's so many different little cool, unique, one-of-a-kind gameplay elements that would start to occur that don't really happen all that much on the other maps of pub. I mean, they do happen a little bit, specifically when you're in the big city of the desert map, but you know, it could be like that, but times 10 on all those cool little moments and stuff that you have on the bigger city moments in PUBG currently, right? But yeah, I don't know. I just think it would be that new thing. It would attract a lot of attention. A lot of people would want to play on a cool, different kind of style map like that. God, Spencer, throw that grenade a little higher, dumbass. Literally would have killed that dude right there. I'd have just threw that grenade just a little bit higher. But yeah, that would be so cool. I don't know. I think about that quite often. Like, man, full-blown city map. And of course, you're going to have smaller buildings within the taller skyscrapers, and you're going to have like city streets and cars down on the streets, and, you know, literally like a New York style map, you know, and then maybe there's like, you know how New York is, where you got like the waterway. It's like a city basically surrounded by water in a certain sense, kind of, sort of. You know, there's like what you could have the same old kind of PUBG waterways and stuff and cities all around. They could fit that into the PUBG universe so easily. Like, I just can't believe it's not already in here, honestly, because it would fit so well. Even the game as is right now, they wouldn't have to like change too much about the game or anything crazy like that. It's just go in there and make a city map with a bunch of buildings. They don't even have to worry too much about building like so much terrain or, you know, trying to make this whole like biome. It's just a city. All you got to do is put streets on the ground and concrete everywhere and crash cars and shit, and a bunch of buildings. You already have a lot of buildings in the game. And obviously they do kind of reuse a lot of their buildings in multiple different maps and stuff. They kind of change them up a little bit. Obviously, the you know, Sandhog buildings are a little bit different than the desert map buildings, that are a little bit different than the first map's buildings, and they're slightly different than the snow map's buildings. But all they would have to do is go in there and make like 3 or 4 more different kinds of like really tall skyscraper buildings. You know, they already have so many objects and models and statues and all these things in pub already that can be used in a map like that. I guess what I'm getting at is they don't have to, like, you know, completely build a map from the absolute ground up. You know what I mean? They could use a lot of things that they already have, because they already have a lot of like structural type things in all their different maps and stuff. So they could definitely, you know, get away with doing that. But yeah, definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys think about a full city map versus having, you know, how we are currently, where it's like a big map of a certain biome with smaller towns within it, and then like one big city on a map or 2 big cities on a map. It's just so cool because the gameplay would be very it would be dynamic, it would be verticality, it would be a lot of really interesting things, like I was saying about grenades being tossed from way up in a higher building, parkouring down out a window to a lower ledge on a certain building because everything's a building, you know what I mean? Like that whole vibe that does happen occasionally on the, you know, the standard maps of pub, but not, you know, it would become the entire way you played that map, like how you could traverse and jump off of buildings to land on other buildings and parkour to this side of this building and do all that, you know what I mean? And how to throw a grenade from this window down 5 stories to another window on a building across from you, and you know what I mean? It would create like a whole nother skill to the game, a whole nother way to play the game completely, entirely. So just a little idea I had, and I'm sure they've probably thrown around this idea as well. But I just think as far as like a quick, easy, simple map to get out to the public, you could do it pretty easily. And I would say the size of it, with it being a city map, it would be tough to have that many structures and buildings in a map that's any much bigger than Sandhawk. You know, you wouldn't want it that much bigger, but it's going to feel a lot bigger than Sandhawk because you're going to have all that verticality, all the extra floors, all the extra, you know, stories on each one of the buildings. So even though it may be the same like size of Sandhawk, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to feel the same, because you got all these skyscraper buildings and shit like that, and it's going to feel completely different. But as far as like just the overall, the actual, you know, square mileage of the map, or whatever you want to call it, it should be pretty close to Sandhawk. And I don't even think they could really do much bigger, like I'm saying, without causing too much lag because of how many buildings there would be and all that kind of stuff. But dude, that, oh my God, like you just imagine, like, you know, 7 or 8 different skyscrapers. There's like squads in all buildings, right? Some of them's on the roof, some of them's on the bottom floor, some of them's like on the ground, on the street, you know. And then you got that, you're gonna have a lot of those gameplay elements of like watching some dude watching the stairs, some dude watching the windows, some dude, you know, you're gonna have all that sort of actually like building fighting mechanic, like I say, which is already in pub. There already is that to a certain extent, but if you jump out the window 9 times out of 10 on pub, you're not going to die. But if you jump out a 10-story building on pub, you're going to die. You see how it changes the dynamic of it, right? And when there's just buildings everywhere, it changes everything about how you traverse the combat situations. It makes it all feel completely different and dynamic and unique to that individual map right there. But either way, just want to come here and talk about that a little bit. Definitely think it'd be badass and a half if they did that on pub. Like, you got to do this, Blue Balls, please. Eventually, and I eventually think they will do this, whether or not it's their next map or whatever. I do think they're going to make a full, like, New York City style map on pub. It may not be like everything I'm thinking or exactly like how I want it to be, but I do think they'll eventually do it. Get wrecked, kid. Oh man. So either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, my dudes.